Yeah, let me pull up the Bethesda tweet so we get everything. All right. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar. Talked about it like a week ago now. Mick Gordon, one of video games' best composers, recently is the wrong word. 2 years ago, got a Reddit post dropped on him by Marty Stratton of id Software behind Doom Eternal, Doom, and he basically blamed Mick Gordon for every problem with the OST and tarnished his reputation publicly. And now, 2 years later, Mick Gordon came out with a giant 14,000 word document complete with its own table of contents. This shit's like a Harry Potter book of receipts that actually show the whole story, or at least his side of it. And today Bethesda's come out and they've given their statement. But just to bring everyone up to speed on the situation, I'm going to let Nick do it because I think he does a wonderful job explaining everything. Nick Nocturnal, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. He's been in the streams quite a bit. He's a great guy, so definitely check out his content. He does a great breakdown of this. In a nutshell, id Software, Bethesda by extension, treated Mick Gordon terribly, asking unrealistic shit that no one could ever complete, and then threw him under the bus, which completely ruined his image for the last 2 years.
I think it's pretty safe to say that most metalheads have heard of the game Doom, as well as the composer of the game's music, Mick Gordon. Because
also, Mick Gordon did the music for Killer Instinct, I believe, and Killer Instinct soundtrack slaps so fucking hard. I compare Mick Gordon to Hans Zimmer for gaming, but if Hans Zimmer had like incredible guitar abilities, like Mick Gordon goes so fucking hard. He just shreds, and I love his work.
the Doom soundtrack is metal as it really kind of gets. Now, since Doom Eternal came out, there is more Mick Gordon tracks because he did the OST once again. But there was a falling out, some bad things happened. People didn't really know until now. Mick Gordon literally just posted on Twitter, Marty Stratton, ID Software Studio Director, lied about Doom Eternal software OST events in a Reddit post that used disinformation to blame me entirely for its failure. Later, he offered me a six-figure sum to never speak about it, and the truth was more important. And, you know, you think it's maybe just going to be like a couple tweets or like a twit longer, but you click
I'm so
this
glad
link,
it wasn't.
and it's a whole thesis. Like, my dude went all out. Look at this.
Yeah, it's like the Yellow Pages from back in the day. It's got so much to it. And not only is it really interesting to understand the situation, if anyone's even remotely interested in what it's like to work in the gaming industry at this level, it's a really great insight into how it works. So it also gives background on how he like goes about his creative process for creating tracks, as well as like deadlines and expectations from the developer. It's fucking cool. It's really cool. He's got these like hand-drawn, handwritten notes. It looks like something out of a crime thriller where they find like these Zodiac killer things, and it's I don't know, I find it really interesting.
Like, he's got some receipts of what happened here. The situation is just beyond messed up. Basically, starting with him being offered to do Doom Eternal.
He's recent place
and
Arthur,
not really
Cass,
getting
and
any
Echo,
direction
and Nut,
of any
Dank,
kind
and
of
Son.
gameplay footage of what the game's going to be like. Like, sure, you're in hell and it's Doom, but is there any actual gameplay footage, any visuals he can use for inspiration and creative, you know, help in any way?
That's also what they requested from him. So they wanted the tracks to obviously match the level. So he would request, can I get like a visual of the level? Can I see what I'm writing to? And they would never send it. He talked about how communicating with Bethesda was next to impossible. They were very unresponsive, and he just never actually got anything. So he'd end up making a track that's like a 30-second loop, and it goes for like a 2-minute long platforming section or something, because he never got what the track was supposed to fit. For some reason, they just kept that shit locked up like the Krabby Patty secret formula for some reason.
And having a lack of communication with the actual team, as well as being
Things that are
required
some slow and
to
Akira.
make 2 tracks a month, fully finished music, mixing, mastered, produced, which if you in any way have written music before or worked on music, you know how insane that timeline is. Even though that actual game was 2 years away. From that, the company would just continue to kind of just ignore him. He'd offer solutions on ways to fix things that would still meet crazy deadlines, with him working insane overtime hours. And they would just ignore it and say, no, it's your fault. Like, you just need to work faster. You just need to get it done. So even though there was no footage, he would take his best shot by just looking at concept art as well as text and resorting to imagination to help score the levels, which, again, like, you're doing a whole game. You want people to play this game and feel immersed in those moments of where the songs.
Well, not only Mick, but Bethesda wanted that as well, but wouldn't do it.
He also had
wouldn't give the information.
issues where the company just refused to pay him until they signed off on arbitrary things, and they withheld payment on him for 11 months.
He still didn't get paid for a lot of his work. As of this moment, he has still not been fully paid. I believe they sent him his contract 2 days, 48 hours before the game's actual release. So they like slapped his name all over like the OST and shit, even though he had no idea that was coming. He didn't even know. They never even told him. So they used him without even having his like actual permission's not really the right word, but without even having him fully involved and in the loop. They would actually just have him just plastered everywhere with him having no knowledge. ZeniMax sent the agreement on March 18th, 48 hours before the game's release. Thanks to resub Grease.
With this being Mick Gordon's, full-time thing, this is how he's making his income. He's taking time away from his family, his friends, working crazy hours, and basically just hoping he can pay his rent, and the company's not even paying him for the work he is doing. From that, it gets worse. The Doom Eternal soundtrack actually gets announced like an official OST.
Yep, the OST, edition, which was a disaster.
Which Mick Gordon was never told about. So they never told him about this, but they announced it at E3 with pre-orders available for this thing that Mick Gordon didn't even know he had to make yet. Now, with the game finally being done, Mick finally gets paid after 11 months. Pre-orders have gone out. People have bought this thing expecting this OST, which Mick's name is on. His reputation is on this.
I'm sure, I can't quite remember if Nick touches on this, but I will briefly. The reason the OST is bad is because it is shittily made, and it's because Mick wasn't involved. So what happened, we'll fast forward. Bethesda put out this statement. So after Mick put out this massive document with all of the receipts, all of the evidence, they came forward basically saying that they stand with Marty and Chad Mossholder. So this isn't an alias, this isn't Chad Thundercock, this is a real person. Chad Mossholder was an in-house audio engineer, and he was given the torch to complete Mick Gordon's work. For some reason, they cold-shouldered Mick at every stage and gave it to Chad to put it all together. So the OST is mixed terribly, and everyone hated it. The mix is trash. Kaya compared it to like an intern being given the work and doing it in the last like 5 days before release. It's not professional, it's poorly slapped together, and Mick Gordon bore the entire brunt of it because Marty Stratton made a Reddit post blaming Mick for everything. Absolutely everything. But now Mick's come out and said, well, no, that's not the case. You made Chad do everything. And Chad really didn't do a great job, clearly. But now, since we're already here, Bethesda's saying they have evidence that contradicts this and says that it's a distortion of the truth and selected presentation of incomplete facts, and they stand ready to release it. And I always have to wonder what the fuck the point is of making a warning like this if you have the receipts. Why wouldn't you have just dropped the receipts first as opposed to lead with this like grand statement like, we do have evidence and we will release it eventually, perhaps, maybe. Like, if you have it, just come out with it. Don't be a bitch. Intimidation only works if it's going to put Mick into silence, but he's already come forward with everything. This isn't going to scare him. He's already dropped all the evidence. This is just nothing. Thanks to resub Tom Flanny, Astrology, and Tier 1 Draw. Yeah, they did try to bribe him with a 6-figure deal to stay quiet about the whole thing. but we'll
So
get
if
to that.
people don't get this delivered, sure, it's on
Thanks,
Doom
Resub
and
Shadow.
ID Software and Bethesda and ZeniMax, but it's also on Mick because it's his music people are
Resub
wanting to
Dudley.
buy. Right? That's like a label saying, hey, this band's album is coming out in 2 months, and the band didn't know they were supposed to write an album. And pre-orders are already out. Like, that's a ridiculous thought. Mick also goes on to say that, of course, a lot of the tracks were being denied. A lot of the demos, the mock-ups, were just saying, it's rejected, it's not good enough. So he ended up making a total minutes release here he has as 4 hours, 46 minutes, and 1 second of music, which that's a crazy amount of music, okay? That's like 5, 6, 7 albums worth. And bands take like 2 years to write an album. And his contracted minutes that he officially had to actually do legally was only 2 hours and 22 minutes. It was half of the amount of music he ended up delivering. Now, somehow this just gets worse. The actual release date for the OST is coming up. And there's no contract yet with Mick and ID Software in any way to get things done. So he went straight to Bethesda because ID Software was just basically ignoring him. And he came to this kind of term stated from the contract that Bethesda
And it still
gave him,
doesn't get solved.
that he would produce 12 songs for inclusion in the OST. All 12 songs were to be selected by ID Software. ID Software had final approval. It was required to hand over all of his source files, stems, raw assets, mix session. And the deadline was April 16th, and it was already May 7th. He had to produce an entire 12-song album for Doom within just over a month.
Yep. Just more absolutely unrealistic requests. The only reason, and I was curious how it was salvaged at all, is just because Mick Gordon is so talented, everything he sent in was still really good. The OST is shit because Chad Mossholder took control to make the OST, but Mick Gordon was super generous with every offer he made. So right before Marty dropped his Reddit post blaming Mick for everything, Mick claimed that they were in a Skype call, or Zoom call, Skype, Zoom, I don't remember which one, irrelevant. They were in a call together, and Mick offered to let's put out a statement saying we're going to clean this up, we're going to make the OST great, it's going to be better. And Mick said, I will make it better. And they came to at least some kind of understanding, or so Mick thought. And then 6 hours after that call, Marty dropped that Reddit post. I may have got the timeline a little mixed up in there, but the shit was unhinged. I don't know what happened between Mick Gordon and Marty, but Marty seems to fucking hate that guy. I don't know if Mick Gordon fucked his wife or something, but he absolutely hates Mick Gordon, it seems. And I have no idea why. I'm very curious to see what evidence Bethesda's alluding to here. Because Mick Gordon had so many receipts. 14,000 words of proof. I really don't know how Bethesda's going to make their case unless Mick was lying about the contracts or something and Bethesda will prove that with the contracts. I really don't know. Thanks to resub Mitch, Salty, Psycho, and the Prime Penguins. I just don't think it's intimidation because Mick's already come out with everything. What are they going to intimidate him into doing? Like deleting it? Like it wouldn't solve anything. Oh, also, they were really adamant about keeping the Reddit post up. They absolutely refused to delete the Reddit post from Marty because they believed it would be an admission of guilt and wrongdoing. So they're fighting tooth and nail to keep that fucking Reddit post up. Thanks to Prime Daisu and the resub green. Hopefully not a band out of 3 situation. I just don't see how it could be. Mick had way too much proof. Helena Taylor just had her word, which meant something at the time. But yeah, I mean, it is possible Bethesda has contracts that disprove some of Mick's claims, but it wouldn't be able to disprove all of them either way. He had emails, he had everything. Why has Bethesda just been targeted out of fucking nowhere? What? Marty for id Software ruined Mick Gordon's reputation 2 years ago with a Reddit post claiming that it was all Mick Gordon's fault. He was lazy, didn't deliver on his work. That's why the OST's shit. It's all Mick Gordon. So now 2 years later, Mick Gordon has finally come forward to set the record straight. I don't know what you mean by why is Bethesda being targeted out of nowhere. The resub Mason, Nunya, and the gift sub Nico. The resub Exian, Fewest, Gannikin, and Susie. The resub Dumpster. One quick text message. Alright, I'm back. Thanks to the resub, Bulk, and Dumpster. Mick should sue. I agree. He should. What are you working on in RuneScape? Just mining. I'm at 96. So almost done. Yeah, I was shocked to see the Bethesda double down. I didn't expect them to like throw Marty or Chad to the wolves, but I really didn't expect like the full-blown double down. That was pretty surprising. Thanks to the resub Zach and Wolfen, and the resub Afterglow and gift sub Nico. Yeah, the Game Award nominations are fine. I didn't have any big critique on it or anything. I think they're all fine. I was a little confused on the streamer nominations. I don't know who Nebellion is or I already forgot the other one. Those were a little wacky, but everything else made sense. Nebellion is a Twitter news guy. I'm just not familiar. He's a Twitter streamer? What the fuck is a Twitter streamer? He doesn't stream. Why is he in Streamer of the Year? Wait, wasn't... What? Hold on. Wasn't he in the Streamer of the Year category? Let's see. Where's the categories? Where can I see just all the categories? Oh, you're right. It's Content Creator of the Year. Carl Jacobs, Ludwig, Nibelian, Nobru, and QT Cinderella. I thought it was Streamer of the Year. Thanks to Resub Shortest and Mihoff. Oh, Jesus Christ, OG. Holy fuck, thank you for that. Appreciate the fat drop, OG. Hope you're doing well. Thanks to Resub Scorpion. Who's gonna win the World Cup this year? Couldn't tell you, but fuck FIFA. FIFA is such a corrupt organization, my god. We were talking about that on the podcast yesterday, or the day before, whenever it was. Good lord. That corruption is so deep, it's unreal. Thanks to Resub Floppy and Treveus and the Prime Rim and Resub Na. Favorite character in God of War? Sindri. Hey, Nick. Yeah, it's an awful situation. Hopefully Mick gets justice. I am very curious to see what Bethesda apparently has.